separation. So very important that you get the right particle size. And so now we've had a look at all the equipment you need. I think we are ready to demonstrate how to actually pack the column and get started with your purification. Okay, so now we are ready to pack the column, and before we start doing that, we have to think about safety. So obviously you're going to wear a lab coat, plastic gloves, and you'll be working in a fume hood. Also, before you start, check all the glassware you'll be using for cracks and so on, because implosion is a real danger when we're working with vacuum. So you want to have nice, clean, sturdy glassware before you start this with no cracks. Okay, I'll be packing a 4 centimeter diameter DC-VC column now. It looks like that. And so what we are aiming for here is a packed column that's about 5 centimeters tall. It's not so important whether it's 4.5 or 5.5 centimeters tall, just the rough ballpark around 5. If it's significantly shorter than 5, you really lose separation power and becomes more like a filtration. If it becomes much taller than 5, 6 centimeters, it doesn't really help your purification, so you're just wasting resources and time. So try to get it around 5 centimeters. So to achieve this, you have to load a few centimeters more of loose silica. So if you load 7 centimeters of loose silica, that will end up being around 5 centimeters when you finish packing it. So now, just to help myself, I'm going to indicate on my funnel where 5 centimeters is, like that. And then I will require a Büchner flask for the actual packing of my column, and I have a rubber bung in there. So you really have to make sure that the equipment is fastly secured before you start. So you use a clamp, of course, just to avoid it falling over. So now it's nicely positioned there with the rubber bung. We can put our centered funnel in like that. And I'm using another clamp. I'm not actually tightening it. I'm just using it to stabilize it so I don't accidentally knock it over. Finally, I need my vacuum. And here I have a 3-way tap for my vacuum. And I've already actually opened up for vacuum, which you may be able to hear or not. Believe me, it is there, as you'll see in a minute when we apply vacuum to the silica. Right, so right now there's no vacuum on the system. It's very important that when you pack, you don't apply vacuum to the system. Okay, so now we should add the silica, and I've got the Merck silica here, the 15 to 40 micrometer silica, and we're aiming for about 7 centimeters of loose silica. I think I'll just move this up so you can better see what I'm doing. So here we go. And it's really important that you do this in the fume hood. Silica is actually really bad for you, so pull down the sash while you're doing this. Now we are almost there. There we go. That's around 7 centimeters, a bit more maybe. Not that important. So now we just have to tap the surface of the sensor to get a nice level surface of the silica and to compact it a little bit. And for that you should just use something of plastic. Some people like to use a rubber tube. I've always preferred to use a plastic funnel. It really doesn't matter what you do here. Just find a solution. Something nice and soft like plastic is good because it will not break the glass. So you can see how the silica is compacting when I'm doing this, and I'm getting a nice and level surface. And already now we're probably down to less than 6 centimeters of silica. Okay, so now I'm ready to apply vacuum. So here we go. And you can see the silica being compressed even further. And now I'm going to use my presses. So I have 2 sizes here. I think I'm going to go for the bigger size for this. And this is not supposed to take a long time. If you spend more than 5 minutes packing your column, you're doing something wrong, right? It should be a fast packing. It only takes a few minutes to do this. So first you compress the column really nice and tight like this. And now we're ready to do the edges. This is very important because the edges of the column is actually where you get problems most frequently because you have channels forming. So it's very important to pack these hard. And now the little mark I made on my column is going to help me because I will be able to know when I've done 1 round of packing, right? Because I'll be turning the funnel as I go. So I'm going to twist it a bit like that. And keep going. And depending on how pessimistic you are, you might do this twice. Personally, I always just do this once. The exception would be very big columns because they're a bit harder to pack tightly, and you might repeat it a few times for a very big column, but we're talking very big column, I mean 20 centimeters diameter, that sort of thing. So there, it's packed nicely. And it's ready to go. So now we are going to put a piece of filter paper on top, simply to protect the surface when we are running the column. And of course, I have the wrong size filter paper. This is the classic problem, so you just have to cut it, or of course you can buy the right size. There we go. And now I have to check if I pack the column properly. And I simply do this by pouring a apolar solvent on, and I always use heptane. And what I want to see is when I pour a lot of heptane on, I want to see the solvent front descend horizontally down the column, right? So that's what we're looking for. So I have some heptane here. I'm just going to pour that on, and hopefully you'll see the solvent front descend nicely. It's extremely rare. In fact, I cannot remember when I last had a column that wasn't packed properly. I mean, it must be before 2000. So with a bit of experience, this is very, you can see how the solvent front is descending very nicely. Now we just have to suck the column dry-ish. Not super dry, just until it stops dripping, and then we are ready to load our sample. So while this is happening, I'm going to show you how to load your sample.